And it was apparent to me as a kid that these AI chess engines were going to outcompete humans. But when I was young, the sort of older people in the room were in denial about it. And when I saw that same thing in 2016 with the development of AI censorship super weapons, I call those weapons of mass deletion, that they would be like weapons of mass destruction, but for speech. A few lines of code would allow you to destroy entire political movements, governments, narratives. There'd be no escape from it. It would permanently change the face of political warfare or domestic politics. You don't need a standing army of 100,000 censors if you just have one, machine learning, just ingested database, of 900 million tweets that you can ingest and then make this sophisticated narrative network map of all the different keywords and concepts you want to censor. And to me, that was like this free speech version, or the censorship version of the atom bomb. So I started that quest in 2016, but very quickly that research and the process of trying to write that showed these international networks immediately. I mean, the NLP, the natural language processing sort of backbone of this was all being sponsored by DARPA.
I don't think NLP stands for natural language processing.
Or terrorist groups. And when I saw that coming home and being advocated here, I spent my whole day, morning, noon, night, 20 hours a day basically, chronicling, archiving. That's how I know so many of these characters, is because I feel like I know them better than my own friends and family, having spent so many years watching this all, develop.
What did it feel like being one of the only people that was sounding the alarm for essentially 8 years? Like, you get involved in 2016 and no one even, the general public, until you came on this podcast, I don't even think we're aware that this was an issue at all. But even then, things got lost so quickly in the cycle of news. Things just come and go so quickly. Until Doge started unraveling all the spending. And you start seeing things like $200 million allocated to transgender experiments on monkeys. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. And that's just a tip of the iceberg. And then the NGOs, and then that map of 50,000 NGOs, essentially democratic propaganda. This is Squarespace. Did you know Rogan Squarespace? It is the platform built to help you stand out online. With their new design intelligence, you can create a stunning, personalized website tailored to your needs. It's like having 2 decades of design expertise and cutting-edge AI in your corner. Need to manage payments? Squarespace Payments makes it simple with options like Apple Pay, Klarna, and more. Try it free at squarespace.com and use squarespace.com/Rogan to save 10% off your first purchase.
Totally. I mean, it's been exhilarating. There's a sort of I understand the weight of history here. We are doing open heart surgery on the body of the American empire, our influence abroad, and it has to be done well. And so, I want to help the American homeland, and so this is a sensitive process, but obviously people go to my ex the same exercise that everything to 8 years ago, going into because all this stuff is open source. You didn't need to be an inside guy to see this if you knew where to look. These are usaspending.gov. I used to between freedom opened up when Elon acquired X, and a few institutional changes began to happen in the government and with Congress. But I used to joke that usaspending.gov was the main difference during the height of this censorship, total control era, was the main difference between us and Russia and China, which was that we have this sort of autocratic control over information and institutions by the U.S. government. So do they. The difference is we can go to usaspending.gov and look up how they do it. So when I've been going to my
Holy
X timeline
shit.
and seeing everybody independently doing that exercise and finding the joy in that, the self-discovery process, and being able to share it with people, and everybody being able to understand and make sense of the receipts, because this framework for understanding it has been shared and popularized. That to me has been the goal all along, to be able to give people the language and the frameworks to understand what is so terrifying and necessary to reform, but that's right there, in front of your eyes, if you only open your eyes to see it.
It's got to be exciting, though, for you to be there on Operation Day when they are doing the open heart surgery.
It is. We need to make sure that the patient doesn't die, on the operating table.
Right.
Just because it's the right move to do the open heart surgery because the patient needs it, doesn't mean that the operation goes well if the operating surgeons don't know the anatomy of the organ they're operating on. So that I see right now as sort of my prime function, is to just teach more and more of the anatomy of the organ, so that the people who are operating on the patient, the American homeland, and generally speaking, the American influence and power projection into foreign countries, comes out better, smarter, a little bit more honest, and there is a hard domestic firewall against our foreign-facing dirty tricks, criminal penalties against agencies who go against this, civil penalties. So
I was supposed to take
both
that.
The agencies and the NGOs who are
That
sponsored,
fucking turn there.
maybe with
Shit.
treble damages, in whatever, whether that's in the department or whether it gets rolled back out.
That's not that bad of a deal.
Agencies as an individual, fire incentive at the agency on their own budget to tightly oversee these things. There's so much done to in line in a smarter and more moral and frankly more effective way, and that's the task right now.
I think one of the most offensive things to Americans is that all this was being done and all this money was being spent while they were denying money to people that clearly needed it, like particularly victims of natural disasters like Maui. Like the fact that they're spending all this money on those things, and yet they gave those people a one-time check of $770 or something along those lines.
Right. Well, this gets to the fundamental heart of the breach of the social contract this thing was always set up to do. It was really set up in 1948 when George Kennan created this NSC 10-2, this National Security Council. We completely reoriented the structure of the American empire in 1948 after World War II. In 1947, we passed something called the National Security Act. That's what established the CIA. That's what established the National Security Council, which coordinates all of our foreign-facing empire management work. It renamed the Department of War to the Department of Defense so that it didn't look like we were acquiring territory by military force, which had just been banned under international law, under the UN Declaration of Human Rights. And so we moved from primarily kinetic warfare into what George Kennan called, just 2 months before he created the plausible deniability doctrine that we live under, he called this organized political warfare. And he has a great memo from April 30th, 1948. It's just 12 days after the CIA's first operation, first time it ever overthrew or rigged the election of a foreign government. This was the April 1948 election in Italy that pitted a pro-Western candidate against a sort of pro-Soviet candidate. So the U.S. State Department felt it was essential to tip the scales of that election because it showed that the pro-Soviet candidate was winning 60-40. This is all declassified, and all the major people who were involved in that operation have all come out and said this publicly. The CIA, basically we threw together this ramshackle effort to tilt that election by pumping in propaganda, by using charities and churches as fronts to funnel money into the pro-Western political party. We piped in, the Greta Garbo movies and whatnot. We worked with some very very seedy elements of Italian society there. We worked with the mafia, and we worked with mafia-connected unions, because these were all assets for the War Department. during World War II because Mussolini was cracking down on them. So the War Department had a relationship with these organized criminal networks to serve as a beachhead against Mussolini. But we kept those relationships in order to run this pro-democracy regime change thing. So in 1948, when we established the secrecy doctrine that we now live under, all these NGOs work under this cover effectively because of their sponsoring organizations, USAID or CIA or state. And he called it the inauguration of organized political warfare. And what he said is, we need to create a covert apparatus to hide what we do from the rest of the world, to do secret political warfare on the low. And the problem is the American people are not going to like this. The American people do not understand the intricacies of international relations. They think there's always an easy political cure-all, and they do not understand. They think there's a fundamental difference between peace and war. And what he proposed is, and this is just 2 months before this would formally be given to the CIA to do. But at the time, what he said was, this worked gangbusters in Italy. We need to replicate this everywhere. We need to create a capacity to do black propaganda, to do economic sabotage, demolition. There's a whole list of what's authorized under NSC 10-2. And what he says is, the American people are not necessarily going to like this, and we're going to need to effectively hide what we do from them, because if they find out, then the rest of the world finds out. If we're trying to run an operation in Eurasia, and we report this in U.S. News, well, then any person in Eurasia who reads U.S. News now knows about it. And so that was authorized at the time with simultaneous with the Smith-Mundt Act, which, are you familiar with the Smith-Mundt Act?
Is that the 2011, 2012 thing where Obama allowed people to use propaganda against United States citizens?
Yeah, that was what was done then under Obama was the effective repeal of it. It was called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. But the modernization got rid of the whole purpose of it, the firewall, because at the time the media and media control was seen as the linchpin crux of winning the Cold War, piping in pro-U.S. media influence because everything moved after World War II from kinetic warfare and military occupation. We used to militarily occupy the Philippines, for example, after the Spanish-American War, but that was banned under international law, territorial acquisition by military force in 1948. So we had to win elections, and we had to influence the passage of laws in foreign countries by having an apparatus inside those countries that influenced the hearts and minds of people, which influenced who they voted for, which then determined the government. So you had to move towards political vassalage rather than military occupation. And what the Smith-Mundt Act did is, simultaneous with the creation of this in 1948, Congress recognized the Frankensteinian monster they were creating by authorizing a covert, permanent Department of Dirty Tricks, and this is their phrase, not mine, to do this cloak and dagger, to infiltrate and co-opt the universities, the unions, the media, the politicians, the judges, the whole swarm army. What I have been calling for a long time the USA Truman Show, because these people in these foreign countries have no idea, how many things they interact with that are effectively a movie set being constructed by the U.S. State Department and its sister influence orgs. But the point that I'm getting at here is the Smith-Mundt Act in 1948 said, okay, you guys can do this. The State Department can do this. CIA can do this. USAID, when it came along 13 years later, could do this. But so there was a guy named Frank Wisner who was known as one of the godfather figures of the CIA. He's known for creating what was called the Wisner's Wurlitzer, which was it's like a church organ. And that he would brag that he could play the international media like a symphony to make any media narrative go viral in any country on earth, because of the suite of CIA proprietary media functions and its distribution network, especially when the U.S. had first mover advantage in radio and print. It's basically the U.S. and UK were the only games in town really in having robust radio, film, TV, and print media. So the Smith-Mundt said, okay, you can do that abroad. You can plant fake news stories in France. You can, have propaganda blare into Africa or Western Europe or Central Asia, but that can't come home. You can't psyop our own people with your propaganda organ abroad, because the whole point of authorizing this is that we get cheaper gas, We get import-export markets. We get a high standard of living because if a foreign government doesn't want to give up its resources or allow a U.S. military base or allow joint partnerships or exports of goods or U.S. multinational corporations to operate there, then the American people suffer economically. So it was always designed to say, listen, you can do this dirty stuff abroad, but it can't come home. And even that protection, which lasted for 70 years, and we only lost it a decade ago. We're up against a much actually deeper, darker problem with this U.S. aid scandal, and as people will see increasingly, we have a problem for funding and operations. It's not just propaganda. The blob, our foreign policy establishment, can fund groups that effectively work with prosecutors domestically, or that work at media. Dual use. We give them foreign grants to do media propaganda abroad, but they operate here. Or social media censorship, to coerce foreign countries to pass foreign censorship laws that explicitly and are intended to attack U.S. social media companies and in U.S. peer-to-peer speech. So we need that protection. If we're going to keep this function at all, we need a hard firewall and absolute grotesque penalties for anybody.
Okay, research shows that 90% of people don't get the recommended intake of vitamin D in their diet. Now throw in winter with less sunlight and cold weather keeping you indoors. But with AG Vitamin D3 plus K2, you can stay supported all season long. With AG1 and D3 K2, you can support your whole body health with an easy daily ritual. Just wake up, mix it in cold water, and off you go. AG1 is obsessive about sourcing ingredients for absorptions, potency, and nutrient density to make sure they deliver the benefits your body needs to raise your baseline health. They do the work to make sure that you are getting what you need for your body and nothing else. AG1 is a great way to invest in your health now and in the long run, which is why I partnered with them for so long. Try AG1 and get a free bottle of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/Rogan. That's a $76 value gift for free if you go to drinkag1.com/Rogan. Check it out. This episode is brought to you by GoPuff. Does grocery shopping drive you nuts? The lines and chaos and the inflated prices? Then you have all these third-party delivery apps with their ridiculous fees, markups, and you still have to wait hours for delivery. Well, enter GoPuff, the game changer. They deliver snacks, groceries, alcohol, essentials, whatever you need straight to your door in just 15 minutes. And get this, it's cheaper than the store because GoPuff uses their own fulfillment centers. No middleman, no crazy markups. It's like Amazon, but for everyday essentials and way faster. GoPuff also just launched cheapest on the planet pricing. Think $2 organic eggs, $2 milk, $5 diapers, $10 Tide Pods. It's insane. They're beating big grocery stores at their own game. So do yourself a favor, download the GoPuff app on your phone, use the code ROGAN20 for $20 off your order, and experience faster, cheaper, better shopping. Trust me, you'll thank me later.
So when you're watching all this unfold, one of the things that I've been seeing is that there's been legal action to try to halt some of it. They've been told to destroy any information that they got from certain databases. Like, what's your take on this, and whether any of that is going to hold up?
Oh, 100%. Well, 100. I don't know if it's going to hold up. I think it's going to be a legal dogfight. This is, it's funny because it's sort of a circular dragon eating its own tail, because you're going after the primary soft power projection organ of the blob, because it's been weaponized against Americans. But what is the blob authorized to do? What is USAID authorized to do under statute? Well, something they call judicial reform, which is USAID poaching, funding financially the networks around judges, around courts, around the legal system, around the governance structure of every country on planet Earth. I mean, and Jamie, if you want to just go through a fun exercise right now, You can even put on screen just a simple Google search so people can see just how open source this is. And I can walk through specific damning examples of this. But if you just type in on Google the word USAID and then in a Boolean quotes, judicial reform. And what you're going to see are basically 100 countries that USAID is going after the judges, going after the legal system in order to rig the scales of justice in favor of foreign policy establishments' interests there. And this has fully come home. And I can go through some examples of this. For example, there's a group called the OCCRP, which is, you can think of as the Corruption Reporting Project. This is a group that half of its funding comes from USAID and the U.S. State Department. OCCRP has to the USAID and the State Department have a veto right over the staff that it can hire. This is the largest consortium of investigative journalists on planet Earth. This is the group that broke the Panama Papers. They got all these hacked documents. They got special access to it. I don't have any facts on this. I'm simply noting that it's an oddity that a group funded by a major CIA funding conduit, USAID, while the CIA has the ability to hack any target around the world that's authorized by the National Security Council. They're getting these special access documents that are reportedly either hacked or leaked, and they're being sponsored by the group that's connected to something with a hacking power. But I don't know that for a fact. I'm simply noting that for investigative purposes, for oversight bodies who may want to ask questions. But they've won hundreds of awards. Their name has been so pristine for so long. They've been around for almost 20 years, and they were sponsored in order to do investigative hit piece journalism about corruption. And what they do is they go after all of the State Department and USAID and DOD's opponents in the region. So for example, Jamie, I texted you this beforehand, but if the first thing you want to put on screen are the first two images that I texted you, this is from the usaid.gov website. And I think this will shock people when they see this with the usaid.gov URL right there, and so that you can see how. Yes, if you go to the first page that I texted you, and then we'll get to this one.
This is the first page.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The second one then. Yeah. Okay. So here it is. This is USAID's Strengthening Transparency and Accountability Through Investigative Reporting Program. Okay. What you'll see here is you'll see the life of activity. This fund they are still being funded through this grant. And this is for Europe and Eurasia. And you'll see the countries: Eastern Partnership, Armenia, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and Western Balkans. Scroll down, you'll see USAID spending. USAID funding is $20 million. $20 million that our taxpayers paid to listen, they don't report on kittens being saved from falling out of trees. Everything they do is a hit piece about an instance of corruption that can be used by prosecutors in the area to arrest the political opponents of the State Department. And what you'll see here is capacity. Now this is the phrase everybody has to know. Capacity building is what this is all built under. That means pumping up the blob's assets. Whenever you see the word capacity or capacity building, it means this thing is useful to us. The more money we give it, the more powerful they are to project our influence. And so if you go back to that page, which is page 2 of this USAID thing, here's what you see. So for $20 million of investment from USAID, here are and this is live on the website. You can find this in the Wayback Machine right now because the USAID website's down. This is USAID, the U.S. government, bragging about the achievements of what they achieved by spending $20 million. At least $4.5 billion in fines levied against targets of these hit pieces. Now, by the way, I should note that the head of the OCCRP was busted in a major documentary that has very little distribution, but I encourage everyone to watch, where he said, because this was I think a year and a half ago or whatnot, but they're up to over $10 billion now.
What's the documentary?
It's on the WikiLeaks X page right now. It's by a group of German journalists who had one-on-one interviews with the head of this group, OCCRP, as well as the USAID grant coordinator and others. So it's straight from the horse's mouth. And they say, he says in that interview, I believe his name is Drew Sullivan, that it's now over $10 billion. And he brags that is I think he said it was a 20,000% return on investment, because all these dollars were, quote, returned to government coffers. So for $20 million of mercenary media for the state-sponsored hit pieces, the government's got $10 billion back. It's pretty good. That's a 1995 Amazon level return on investment. But now let's get into the darker stuff. 548 policy changes by the government or actions by civil society and the private sector. Now, we don't know if these policy changes are good or bad. Do you think USAID would list them as accomplishments if they were not in furtherance of USAID's or the State Department's foreign policy goals in the region? What they are saying and trying to sort of speak through their teeth, as they say it, is that they proudly sponsored hit piece journalism to ruin people's lives and go after political targets in order to change the policies of foreign governments from the inside. Now, it goes on to say 21 resignations and sackings, including of a present prime minister. Now, the head of OCCRP in this documentary openly says that their reporting caused, I think it was 5 or 6 different governments to topple and turn over and be transitioned. So this is state-sponsored media hit pieces so that prosecutors can arrest presidents and prime ministers to regime change their government and install a more pro-U.S. Political vassal figure in the region. And then the last one is 456 arrests and indictments. And this, again, is listed as a USAID achievement. We don't know what these people did. We don't know, whether they're guilty or innocent, or whether or not these were political prosecutions, like you see right now with the New York District Attorney's Office, which is a whole nother USAID-connected can of worms. But these are state-sponsored hit pieces for hire in order to give the Justice Department, the prosecutors in a region, the ammunition to arrest the enemies of the state. The prosecutors don't have the capacity to do a whole investigative journalism dig. They might not have access to hacked documents that, for example, the CIA, the NSA, or deeply connected political insiders might be able to give to a group like OCCRP. Now, USAID gets a veto right over who they can hire. OCCRP has to submit an annual work plan to be submitted to and reviewed for approval by the State Department and USAID. And here's the kicker of it all. OCCRP, paid for by us, U.S. taxpayers, dug up dirt on Rudy Giuliani's work in Ukraine. This is because this was part of the 2019 impeachment, and Rudy Giuliani and his work in Ukraine. So they went and dug up dirt on Rudy Giuliani, a domestic U.S. citizen, high-profile political figure, actually attorney to the U.S. president. And then that dirt came home and was used as part of the basis for the 2019 impeachment of the sitting president, Donald Trump. That would have never happened unless USAID sponsored that hit piece work. And then they did the same thing with Paul Manafort, because it's the same foreign policy blob that went after Trump in the first place because of his difference in foreign policy vision around Ukraine, Russia, and other major.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. People like to throw around all these red flags, things someone says or does that you don't like, which is fine. But instead of focusing on the negative all the time, why don't we focus on the positive? If you're looking for a romantic partner, think about what traits you like to see in a person. If you like to work out and stay in shape, you might want to find someone who's also health conscious. Or if you like to travel, you probably want to find someone who's just as adventurous. Now, once you're in a relationship, it's a whole different ballgame, and things aren't always going to be perfect. But that's what therapy is for. Therapy is an excellent way to work through any problems, even the small ones. Like, say you and a loved one have been fighting a lot lately, but you still really want to make things work. Therapy can serve as a mediator. It can help you identify the problem and teach you positive ways to address it. If you're new to therapy or want to try something different, BetterHelp is a great place to start. It's convenient and affordable since everything is done online. It's already helped over 5 million people worldwide connect with a credentialed therapist. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/JRE to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/JRE.
The lawfare against Giuliani is interesting. Like, what is the case that he lost? It was in Georgia, and he was accusing these women who worked at this election facility of some impropriety.
Right. This is a different case than that because this was related to the 2019 impeachment and all the Ukraine kerfuffle around the quid pro quo call allegedly that President Trump made to President Zelensky, which, by the way, we should get to USAID's role in the Joe Biden quid pro quo side of this in a second. But that case, I believe, related to 2 workers in Georgia, and it was related to the whole investigation of election fraud and whether or not there may have been fraud perpetrated in the Georgia election. I believe it was either 2021 or it may have been. The 2020. I'm not that case. I'm not deep in the weeds on, but I have to say this as well. And Jamie, I don't know if the whole audience is familiar with this clip, but it's an incredible, scandalous clip. Do you remember when Joe Biden was at the Council on Foreign Relations and bragged that he got the top prosecutor in Ukraine fired by the Ukrainian government because he explicitly conditioned the firing of the prosecutor who was investigating Burisma. He expressly conditioned the receipt of $1 billion in U.S. financial assistance on the firing of Victor Shokin, the prosecutor, and he said, "Well, son of a b," he was fired. And
it's so crazy watching him brag about that publicly. It just shows you what an idiot he is.
You know what that $1 billion in financial assistance was? It was a USAID grant. Yeah, it's the carrots and sticks, and it's like,
find that video, Jamie, because it's a shocking video. And it's just the hubris and the ego that someone has to have to speak of this publicly while it's being filmed, not just publicly, not just in a room, not even just saying it out loud, but saying it in front of the Council of Foreign Relations backdrop.
And actually, before you play this, can I make one quick note for the audience that everyone can look up publicly? The Council of Foreign Relations I'm just about to text Jamie another thing related to this. I'm going to pull up the USAID grant so that everyone can see this $1 billion USAID grant that he's referring to here and what's in the grant details. But when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State running the State Department that USAID answers to, right? USAID is independent but guided by the State Department. It's a State Department function. It has to advance U.S. interests. Well, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, the Council of Foreign Relations had just opened up a D.C. office. They're New York based. She went over to them and she made a speech and she said, "Thank you, Foreign Relations, for opening up your D.C. office. That way I don't need to travel all the way to New York to be told what to do." It was the head of the State Department.
She really said it like that?
Yeah, everyone can look this up. That might not be verbatim, but it was as explicit as that, I think. But if you want to play this,
I remember convincing our team or others to convincing that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor. They didn't. So they said they were walking out to the press conference. I said, we're not going to give you $1 billion. They said, "You have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him." I said, "I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion." I said, "You're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to keep it here." I think it was 6 hours. I said, "I'm giving it 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money." Oh, son of a bitch. I got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
solid.
Still, they made some genuine, substantial changes institutionally and with people.
Yeah, so there's two things to immediately follow up on that. So, Jamie, I just sent you two things over text here. The first one is the U.S. is that $1 billion loan guarantee, and then I sent you another one about securing commitments, and then
It's just wild that someone would be so brazen to talk about that so publicly. It's that no one's going to look at it. Someone that was solid. What was wrong with the first guy? Let's go into depth.
Well,
the fact that you wouldn't think, like, maybe someone's going to investigate what was the first guy looking into. Oh, why was my son running Burisma? Like, what is going on? Why is he making $10 million a year there? What is going on? What is this?
well, okay. So this was $1 billion. Okay, so this will actually go to the other one. Okay, we'll start with this. Okay, so here's from USAID. USAID announces, now this is again the basically the final months of the Obama administration. Right, this is right before the November 2016 election. USAID announces a $1 billion loan guarantee. Remember, he referenced the loan.
By the way, do they pay these loans back?
Well, depends on if they play ball or not. This is another one of these things, right? If you're a good boy and you do what the blob tells you to do, maybe we can be flexible in loan forgiveness. Maybe we can allow you to punt the default. But you'll see but these are the carrots and sticks. This is why we infiltrate and co-opt these institutions, and why you have a $44 billion annual slush fund around the world to do this. But you'll see, it's the issuance of the $1 billion loan guarantee to the government of Ukraine, and it's to support the implementation of governance reforms. So it's for we condition it on you changing the policies of your government.
And this is already 2016 after we installed a coup.
Yes.
In 2014.
Yes. And remember, the last time I was here, we went over the 2019, Zelensky's first month in office, the Red Lines memo. Talk about how do you prove you're a good boy? Well, when you get the Red Lines memo that you will suffer political instability unless you do the 25 below listed policy things with your government, that factors into what the U.S. ambassador in the region will tell their Ukrainian or other government counterparts. Loan guarantees and whatnot are conditioned on. But so if you go to you notice that Biden there used a very specific phrase there about securing commitments. I don't know if everyone caught that. I want to note the similarity of that to, if you go to the other screenshot, Jamie, that text you here. I'm sorry that my bug is on this. I just pulled this up. What
are you doing with your lips?
Yeah, I know. We'd been talking right before we started filming about just throwing receipts up on screen. This is just a live stream series that I do on X, and so
they caught you mid-words.
I know. But this is $1.5 million. So USAID has given $27 million in grants to the Tide Center, which is the 501c3, is the fiscal sponsor that gives the 501c3 status to the Black Lives Matter Global Network and to a group called Fair and Just Prosecution, which is basically manages prosecutors who are simultaneously funded by the Open Society Foundation. So they work with Alvin Bragg and Letitia James and all these other ones. And so, but you'll see here in this is a $1.5 million grant. You'll see that exact phrase that Joe Biden used about securing commitments from governments to fight corruption. So sometimes this diplomatic statecraft, this strong-arm pressure, is done directly by the vice president. Sometimes it's done by interlocutors, like our state-sponsored NGO swarm, who allow our ambassadors and allow the White House to maintain a layer of plausible deniability that it's an intermediary saying it, and they can say much harsher things than what can be conveyed and maybe used against you in a formal diplomatic channel. And I sent one more thing, Jamie. If you pull up, if you go to my X feed and you just type in the phrase USAID Burisma, because this is another element of this. Again, how is this all weaponized at home and whatnot? So Victor Shokin was investigating Burisma. Joe Biden personally weaponized USAID in order to force a foreign country's prosecutor to be fired in order to get that billion.
Can I stop you for a second? What was the investigation of Burisma? What did it entail?
Well, I believe it was a similar corruption probe, that there was, that there was misuse of funding. All this stuff is well documented in Miranda Devine's book, The Big Guy. But if you open those four screenshots, I don't know if you're able to center it or zoom out a little bit.
Western Protection is a great fucking title.
USAID helped young Biden. This is in 2014. Hey, remember when Hunter Biden's permanent blanket pardon goes back to? It goes back to 2014.
Right.
And so this directs USAID to guarantee loans. So it's loan guarantees for every phase of development of oil and gas in Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. Now, if you go to the next screenshot of this. This is from this is a FOIA'd or legally obtained internal document at the State Department, which says, despite his ruined name in Ukraine, Zlochevsky is actively campaigning. He's been sending letters to ambassadors Yovanovitch and Pyatt. They note that Hunter Biden and Devin Archer are on the board, and they say internally, at State, USAID does have cooperation with Burisma. It says small-scale pre-existing cooperation. They're formally cooperating with Burisma in the region. They're noting that. And then if you go to the next screenshot, now this again is State Department email traffic that's been unearthed. Okay? So about doing co-branding and Burisma and the public-private partnership around USAID and Burisma. But then noting, quote, the very sticky wicket of the Hunter Biden connection on Burisma's board. And then they go on to say that, they want to create incentives for journalists to ensure responsible and unbiased coverage.
Very sticky wicket. What a weird way to phrase that in an official email.
Right. What they're saying is it would be a major scandal if everyone knew the extent of it. They know it looks unseemly. They don't want the media to report on the massive conflict of interest of Joe Biden going in and kicking out that prosecutor and conditioning USAID money on it while USAID is directly working with Burisma. But then the State Department, using its media mockingbird apparatus funded by your tax dollars, the swarm of NGOs, as reported publicly this week that 90% of Ukrainian media outlets are funded by the U.S. government. 90%. Talk about a USA Truman show.
Jesus Christ.
And so, if they're funded by the State Department, guess what? There's a State Department grant coordinator. Guess what? If they want to keep getting their contributions, there's going to need to be review and approval by USAID and by state, because often these are co-grants. And so they have the capacity to ensure that the incentives are aligned for the journalists to be responsible with the way they report on the USAID Burisma connection while Joe Biden is weaponizing USAID to protect Burisma. By the way, I should note, Hunter Biden's law firm actually pitched using Burisma as an instrument of statecraft to the State Department, because the more you capacity build Burisma, the more endogenous gas Ukraine is able to supply, and so that's less gas being exported to Europe from Gazprom and Russia. So they blend this. It advances the U.S. national interest, but hey, it makes us rich along the way. So, it's the same reason Pfizer gets to keep all the profits. For when there's a vaccine mandate. They don't. They say, well, we're just rewarding. We're doing such good work. Well, why aren't you, if this is a charity, why aren't you giving the money back to the American people? Well, should we put some cap on this? And we're incentivizing this, pioneering approach, and we're uniquely in the position to do it.
And what's important about this is this explains for a lot of people that are very baffled by obvious propaganda and misinformation that's being propagated by the mainstream media. When you look at mainstream newspapers and television shows saying things that are just factually incorrect, and you could research it, it's not hard to find out, and you see them propagate this stuff. This is all the same sort of thing, but this is happening on U.S. soil.
Oh, exactly. Well, actually, Jamie, if you pull that receipt back up, there's a paragraph there we didn't read, but that's useful to this. And then there's another topic related to this that I think makes this point even harder. But look at that fourth paragraph there. This is from the U.S. State Department, which is in control of managing all of the media assets, those 90% of media assets in Ukraine and the ones that simultaneously operate here. I would offer that Burisma's incentive to support could plausibly read, the main objective of Burisma was to create incentives for journalists to offer sympathetic coverage.
Wow. main objective of Burisma. The main objective. It's an energy corporation.
Yes, yes. Humanitarian aid. This is a for-profit company that's directly tied.
Such a wild statement. The main objective of Burisma was to create incentives for journalists to offer sympathetic coverage of the company on energy issues.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Right. They want to pitch it as a sort of patriotic, pro-Western.
They bought the media.
They bought the media. They bought the media.
And they bought the media here.
On that topic, can we talk about a related scandal and frankly monstrosity that the American people need to understand the full extent of its influence on American hearts and minds?
No, we can't talk about that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go on to the next thing. Okay.
So this episode is brought to you by NetSuite. What does the future hold for business? Ask 9 experts and you'll get 10 answers. Bull market, bear market. Until someone invents a crystal ball, over 41,000 businesses are future-proofing their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one fluid platform. With one unified business management suite, NetSuite gives you a single source of truth, giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick, confident decisions. Plus, real-time insights and forecasting let you peer into the future with actionable data. When you can close the books in days, not weeks, you spend less time looking back and more time at what's next. Whether your company is earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. Speaking of opportunity, download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning for free at netsuite.com/Rogan. This episode is brought to you by Buffalo Trace Distillery. I actually have some Buffalo Trace cigars here they just sent me. One of the world's most award-winning distilleries that's been making whiskey the same way for more than 200 years. Made as a tribute to the rugged, free-spirited pioneers who blazed their own trail to new frontiers. It embodies the perfectly untamed spirit of independence. It defines what an award-winning bourbon should be. Aged nearly twice as long as competitors in new charred white oak barrels and bottled at 90 proof, Buffalo Trace is the perfect bourbon.
So far, so good. It's a little windy, and I'm pretty light. And there might be a snowstorm rolling in about 3 hours. But right now, it's good. New truck's driving pretty well, too.
Powerful and passionate. Tap the banner to learn more or visit BuffaloTraceDistillery.com. That's BuffaloTraceDistillery.com. Distilled, aged, and bottled by Buffalo Trace Distillery, 90 proof, Franklin County, Kentucky. Buffalo Trace, American, family owned, independent, and perfectly untamed.
So, Jamie, if you go to X, I think probably the best thread on this currently published is the WikiLeaks thread on Internews, which just reading some of the statistics in that will help make sense of some of the clips and screenshots that I'm going to show you about its operations that then impact domestic affairs.
That I like it. It drives really nice. Out of all the trucks I've driven so far, this might drive the best. In terms of brand new trucks, I've driven a 2023 Volvo for a while. For about maybe year and a half, 2 years, I was in that. I drove a 2018 Freightliner, which is the truck I was in before this one. I drove a 2017 T680, and now this. Overall, those, like, if you add up the positives and negatives, all those trucks, I'd total it to about 6 or 7 out of 10 for every single one of those trucks, but it's all for different reasons. And so there are things that this truck falls short on. which well, where do I begin? It doesn't have a suspension air pressure gauge, so at least I haven't been able to find it. Maybe it's in the settings, and when I looked, I couldn't find it. And you know, I use that to determine roughly like how much weight's in my trailer, if I need to scale or not. Because if my suspension's sitting at 50 psi, I know that I'm at 70,000 or more pounds. And this doesn't have that gauge. It doesn't have a trailer brake gauge, or sorry, not a gauge, a trailer brake at all. So you can't independently activate your trailer brakes, which there's utility in that. You know, while it's more of a skill to know when to use it, if your tractor loses traction, and your trailer still has traction, you can pull your trailer brakes down and it will straighten out your truck and prevent you from jackknifing, potentially. So there's, you know, it's a tool that you have at your disposal that this truck just doesn't have. And all the other trucks I've been in have had it to some extent. What else? The digital display on it, it looks cool, and it's aesthetic, but I don't like, there's not enough color in it to quickly like differentiate what you're looking at through your peripheral vision. In an analog display, you have, you know, 3 dimensions you're working with, so there's depth. You can see at the corner of your eye very easy where your RPM gauge is or where your speedometer gauge is without having to look at it directly. Whereas this, like the RPM gauge is very small, and with the red background and the red indicator, it blends in, and there's no way to changing that I know of. So that's kind of frustrating, but I do like the layout. The layout of it's very nice, and the benefit of having the digital displays, you can pick and choose what gauges you want on your screen, and put it wherever you want on the screen. Like, so this setup, you know, I can quickly change, you know, get rid of some stuff, add some stuff, and when I'm stopped, I can go move them around. So that's nice. As I'd mentioned before, this truck does drive really, really nice, and it's very quiet. We'll see once I get to about 250,000 miles if it stays that way, because the Volvo, when I got the Volvo, I got it it only had 2,000 miles on it, so it was a brand new truck at the time, and it drove really, really nice as well. But after about 200,000 miles, which I did in a year, if not, I might have put more than that with the company I was working with. It just, the steering and the way it rode, it ticked very rapidly. So we'll see how this one holds up. This one's got 130,000 miles on it, and it still drives very, very nice. In terms of user interface, the steering wheel is good. You know, I don't really, it's pretty standard. There's not really anything I can complain about it. Oh, it does have a feature which I do really like that no other truck I've been in has had. So next to the cruise control here, you have this limit setting. And so you can set your own governor as you wish, with the exception that you'll have your company set governor. Like right now, mine's set to 72. Which I'll see about getting set up to 75 at some point. But I can go in and my governor to 65 if I want, or 60. And so if you're, you know, it's just a really convenient way of wanting to control your speed as you traverse your, you know, the terrain. So that's really nice, and I haven't seen another truck that has that. So the Volvo and the Freightliner both had, when you're on cruise control, they had a function where you can determine at what speed your engine brake kicks in, and it'll start to slow you down. And you can set it to, you know, 5 miles above your cruise control set point, or, you know, 4 miles, 3 miles. This doesn't seem to have that, which is, if it does, I don't know how to find it yet. which I really like that feature. What else? Oh, god damn it. Stupid suction cups, man. I don't look for shit. Come on, car, pass me. What else? The sleeper, I'll stop here in a moment, about 8 miles. I can show you the sleeper. I haven't put any of my stuff away, so it's a fucking mess in here. But the sleeper is nice. I like the layout. I like the storage is really good. The top bunk has a lip on it where the mattress will set in, and both the Volvo and the Freightliner I had, the Kenworth I had, didn't have a top bunk, but they didn't have a lip. It was just like a mattress that was built into the frame board or the baseboard that would lay on a support. And so I can have, you know, boxes and stuff up there, and they won't slide off if I hit the brakes too hard, which was happening a lot in the Freightliner. The Volvo, I got around it because it had handles on either side by the top bunk where I could run a ratchet strap through and stop stuff from sliding off. Freightliner didn't have anything I could do that with, and I needed to get a load lock to stop it. But this has an actual lip, so, you know, any boxes or containers I have up there, they're going to stay secure and they're not going to go anywhere, which is really, really nice. It doesn't have an apparent way to mount any TV or anything, so I've got to get creative, and I might drill some holes into it to set up my monitor for my computer, but I haven't decided where or how I'm going to do that yet. The Volvo had a TV mount built into it, but it was in a really weird place. The Freightliner, I had to rig something up to do it, but it worked very well. And the Kenworth, I think had a spot for it, but I didn't have anything mounted there. It has a bunk heater, 4,000 watt inverter, which is really, really nice. The 4,000 watt inverter is fucking great. I can, you know, run everything on it. Downside is the auto engine shutoff is enabled on this truck, and I need to run to Peterbilt to go get them to disable it. There's ways around it, but it's a pain in the ass. I gotta fuck with a relay underneath the dash, or put in a special relay that will automatically trigger the reset to the engine shutoff. And this truck doesn't have an APU yet. So, you know, if I want to, like, on my 34 run my computer all night, I've got to idle the truck so I don't drain the batteries, which we'll see how that ends up working with this auto engine shutoff. Not sure yet. Haven't had a chance to test it out. Visibility is great on this truck. I really like the mirrors. The mirrors are really nice, although there seems to be a little bit of warping that happens on the passenger side mirror, where I don't know if if there's a slight curve in the mirror, but depending on where you look, you could see the light kind of bend and shift, which distorts the image, but it's very subtle. I noticed it more at night, so that's not really a big complaint though. Yeah, is there anything else you want me to go over about it? There's probably a lot of stuff I missed, but overall, I mean, you know, 7 out of 10 truck. It's a good truck. You know, I'm nitpicking for sure. Oh, I've got a complaint. Outlets in this truck. And the only truck that has done this correctly was the Volvo. The Volvo had a cigarette outlet up top, which was great. I loved having one up there. I could run all my cables out of line of sight, have things mounted up top so they're not in the way of my field of view, and not have any cables hanging down that would obscure my vision. No other truck has had outlets up top there on the storage compartments up there. Only the Volvo's had that. The Volvo also had a cigarette outlet on the dash up here and 2 USB ports. No other truck has had that. And then the Volvo finally had another cigarette, 2 cigarette outlets, or 12-volt outlets, I should say, down below, whereas this truck has 1 and then USB ports. And then there's no other outlets whatsoever. The Sleeper's got, the Sleeper has, the layout's nice in terms of the outlets and electronics. I've only put about 400 miles on this truck, but this truck has 137,000, well, almost 138 now, miles. I don't particularly have a favorite. Like right now, despite my complaints that I've listed, this truck is my favorite so far, just in terms of the actual driving experience. Although the seats, if I had the Freightliner seat in this, the Freightliner had the best seat. The seat was very, you could have it set to whatever you want, different lumbar supports, very customizable to get it perfect, exactly how you want it. The seat on this truck is a little weird, but that aside, this truck drives very, very well, and I'm very I'm happy with just the driving experience. And so what you spend most of your time doing is driving, right? That's very enjoyable. So all of the other stuff, you know, it's more preferences rather than necessities, when what really matters is how well it drives, and this drives fantastic. I do eventually, if one of the company I'm with, they have several 389s and 379s, as well as a few W9s, but those seats are all filled right now, and so either they go out and go get another one, which I don't know if they will or not, or if one of those seats opens, I will most likely be put into one of those trucks. And so I'll be able to, at that point in time, kind of say how the older trucks and older body styles compare to these new trucks. But as of right now, I've never driven any one of those long hood trucks that are out there, so I don't have a reference point to say if they're better or worse. They definitely look cooler, that's for sure. About 4 years now. Yeah, about 4 years. Maybe a little more. Am I going to the right place? Yes, I think so. Yeah, I'm going to the right place. So prior to trucking, I worked in sales. I worked at a car dealership for a few years, and I jumped around in sales a bunch. And then I was living in Portland, Oregon, and then COVID hit, and COVID really kind of fucked a lot of things up, because they took it very, very serious out there, and everything shut down. I lost my job. And I never really, like, I was pretty good at sales. It was like, particular at the car dealership, but you know, I like when I went to like construction sales and roof sales, I struggled in that. And so, you know, losing my job wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it definitely kind of made me lose a direction in life. And it took me, you know, a long time to figure out what I wanted to do. And you know, my brother had gotten to trucking, and trucking is something that kind of loosely runs in the family. My dad was an engineer for Freightliner, and my grandfather, when he was my age, he worked at Peterbilt. So there's a little bit of a family connection to it, and my brother got into it, and he was doing it for about 4 years by the time I was old enough to get my CDL. And it's kind of what inspired me to jump on board. Was he was having such a great time being out on the road, and I wanted to get out of Washington. And so as soon as I turned 21, I got my CDL, and I got a local job working for the post office out in Portland. Come on, dude. And then eventually I went over the road. So I am running late. Oh well. Was that... Shit, was that where I needed to go? Fuck, that might have been where I needed to go. Ah, shit. Damn it. Of course I fucking... do you think Freightliner will mind if I turn around? I hope not. Ah, you asshole. Fuck you. Ah, shit. I've got a few stops here in outside Des Moines, and then I gotta head up to Council Bluffs and then Sioux City, which hopefully I'll make it if I don't fucking miss my my entrances and delays. I was late from the very beginning because, you know, just switching the truck over. I'd broken down in the Freightliner yesterday or 2 days ago, which caused me to be late, and so I picked up this load late anyway. And it's unfortunate that it's all happening on Friday, which means I might have to call ahead and let them know, like, hey, I'm running late, and see if they'll stay for me at my my last couple stops. But we'll cross that bridge when I get there. I didn't recognize the entrance because of all the snow. Last few times there wasn't as much snow on the ground. There was, now this is probably my fault because the last time I was out of freezing temperatures, I didn't empty my air tanks and drain them out, because as your air compressor collects air, moisture will get into it, and there's filters that will help separate that moisture out, but some of it gets in your air tanks. And I was in Minnesota and everything froze. All my airlines froze up on the truck. The water that got in there, the filter was all frozen, and it was the governor on the air compressor, or the air dryer, whatever it is, whichever part, was popping like crazy, and didn't have any air pressure, and I couldn't move. So yeah, it was something that probably could have been avoided, but I've never had an issue with my air tanks freezing up like that before. But it seems that Freightliner in particular, maybe all Freightliners, were very picky about the environment that it's in. Because my Volvo, I didn't have to do fucking shit to the Volvo. Not a single time. I had that truck for, what was it, a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And running from Washington all the way out to upstate New York all winter, and I never once had to empty out my air tanks like that or drain them, which that's something you should do, but oh well, caused me some time. I'll be right back.
Sorry about the view. I'll fix the camera here in a second.
Yeah, I gotta unload this trailer. Give me a second. Sorry for making you guys wait. Well, if you're still watching, here's the interior. It's pretty nice. I like it. Good space. Just talking about the lip up there for the containers. I gotta put all this shit away and fucking do that, but it's good. Good interior. Okay. Where do I need to go? I need to go. Kinds of gloves. I need to hurry. I need to hurry. Okay. Exit. Where to? Nine. Yeah, it's a really spacious interior. I like the way the cabinets are all laid out. Like, here, real quick, while I got a moment. The fridge is in a nice location. There's some storage underneath the fridge. These compartments are all buttons, so you don't have to deal, like a lot of these other fucking trucks have like plastic and shit. That just the latches are all plastic and they fucking bullshit and they break and you hit a bump too hard and they fucking fly open. This button's very simple and it's effective and it doesn't make a lot of noise, doesn't rattle. It's got cup holders in the back, which is nice. The storage compartments are all good. Space up top is in a good spot. Really good. It actually has a fucking air gun, which the Freightliner and the Kenworth didn't have. Volvo had one though. Yeah, it's good material, light color, you know. The kind of grayish brown isn't anything special. Just light colors makes it feel more spacious. So. I got to fucking hammer down. Why aren't you not connected, E-Log? Oh, this is a problem. Just barely made it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is for the Peterbilts. I'm pretty sure this is a base model because it's got the plastic, like the primered side skirts that aren't painted, which I don't mind. I mean, I almost prefer the base model. Like if you could get like a base model truck with the 15 liter, because this has the MX-13 in it, that would probably be the best, and then a manual. But oh shit, I need to go that way, dude. I don't like having my GPS in this location because I am not paying attention to it. But once you get to like the higher trim levels of these trucks, you get all the bullshit. And what I mean by bullshit is you get all the fucking special sensors, the proximity sensors, the blind spot warning. You get all the stuff that never works properly. That's what you get when you get the higher trim level trucks. And sure, you might get some different layout on the interior. The one nice thing about high trim level trucks is that the bottom bunks tend to fold out into like a table and a bench seat, which is really nice. Like the Volvo 860s do that. I'm pretty sure that the Peterbilts do that as well, and that's really nice. I wish I had that. That would make the living, you know, and I just fucking live in the top bunk and have everything on the bottom bunk and have an actual like living space. But you know, in order to get that, you got to get all these fucking sensors that are annoying and half the time don't work properly. I don't think it's worth it. This is a very tight turn, especially with all the snow. Made it. Do I deal with the mechanic? It's a small company. Like I can call them if I've got a problem. But anything that involves like a roadside service coming out or like sending it to a shop, come on. I go through my boss and let them deal with that. But yeah, if it's like, you know, if there's anything small and I bring the truck back to the yard, I can go talk to him and say, hey, this is what I need done, and he might go ask the boss about it. But for the most part, it's pretty simple, not complicated, not difficult. Let's see if I can drop that down to fucking 2. How do I actuate my wiper fluid? If I ever had a truck completely break, it was in engine, transmission. I've never had one that like I had to get towed. I've never had any issue where like the whole truck was completely disabled and I had to get it towed somewhere. No. The closest I got to that was when I took out that elk in Flagstaff last year. I fucking disintegrated it doing 75. But I still drove that truck back from Flagstaff to Phoenix. I shouldn't have, but I fucking did. I brought it back to the yard. The whole front end's all mangled. Surprised my radiator was still working. No, it's the dial that you use to tell your wiper speed, but because the button that's on the stock right here is the button you use for your like acknowledgement lights to flash your exterior lights on and off. So you have the dial, and the actual dial itself like slides in towards the steering column, which then turns it on. So that's a really like awkward way of doing it. Anywhere in the Northwest, it's just fucking awesome out there. I love driving through Montana. Montana might be my favorite. Going through Missoula and Butte, and that and Salt Lake City. Driving through Salt Lake is incredible. At any time of the year, especially like the winter and spring, it's just beautiful. So Utah, Montana, Washington. Quote of the day. Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. Let me get out of Des Moines and I'll be able to think of something. not too bright out in these parts of Iowa, so what can I say? You gotta pay attention.
So if you just look up, just type in the word Internews, one word, INTERNEWS, and you go to search that on the WikiLeaks profile, you'll see. Yeah, here you go. If you just top that top one, you know, USA has pushed nearly half the. So Internews, I've been talking about for a long time, but now the stage is sort of set to really show the extent of this. But what we do is we create these pretty little predicates, these pretty little line words, weasel words, to hide from the American people and especially from foreign governments what we're really doing in the internet. So we have a catchphrase in statecraft. It's called independent media. You can think of that as the State Department's word for good guy. Okay, doesn't mean independent. They are funded by us. They are not independent from the government. They literally submit their work and approval plans for. Their work plans for what they cover for review and approval to the U.S. State Department. They are dog walked the whole way. But we call them independent because they are said to be independent from foreign governments who influence. Basically, they're independent from the Chinese government, or they're independent from the Russian government. So there's, just like with the word USAID itself that we talked about last time, it's your mind playing tricks on you. You're seeing aid, but it's Agency for International Development. Right? But they do the same thing with independent media, which is that internally to them it means it's a good guy for us because it's independent from our enemies. But when Americans see that, they think, well, independent, that means it's a free actor who's not being sponsored by any government. But under the banner of USAID's independent media and media sustainability branches, we fund $500 million a year to this network of, again, over 4,000 media outlets. It reaches 778 million people, 9,000 journalists trained. Remember last time we went over the Atlantic Council with 7 CIA directors and annual funding from USAID, as well as the State Department and Pentagon, how they were holding up I call BS placards and putting Trump tweets on screen to flag for disinformation. If you remember, we went over that. Well, this is what training journalists looks like. Is not only do they have the direct spawn of a media octopus under their direct sub-grantee group, but they then go out and train the journalists who work at all the other ones who aren't directly sponsored. So they reach everywhere. And you'll see here, for example, it makes reference to Gene Burgo, who is making $500 million a year there. If you go now, I'm going to show this domestic impact real quick, and then a couple.
Didn't see you there, buddy.
This has been going viral on X. I've been talking about USAID's role in the censorship industry forever. And if you just look up Internews and you just plug in the name, if you just copy paste that Gene Burgo thing, the phrase, you'll see this in the video section because it's everywhere now. So she made speeches for a long time, but this is a big one. Here we go, this one right here. Okay. So USAID funded Internews CEO pushes for global advertising exclusion list to censor disinformation. This is a 28-second clip. Yeah, exactly.
Makes money, and that's one of the things we follow that money, and we need to work with particularly the global advertising industry. That a lot of those dollars go to pretty bad content, and so you can work really hard on exclusion lists or inclusion lists, just to really try to focus ad dollars and challenge the global advertising industry all around the world to focus their ad dollars towards the good news and information, the accurate and relevant news and information.
So this is USAID sponsoring both sides of this. She runs a $500 million mercenary media for hippies for hire empire, sponsored by USAID. USAID also gave $68 million to the World Economic Forum itself, and USAID's own internal documents show the explicit political targeting of these advertiser networks, and I can show you receipts on that if you just type in the word CEPS, CEPPS, and advertiser on my X timeline. And I don't mean to just go receipt to receipt to receipt. Actually,
No, it's okay.
Actually, before we get to that, just so I can close the loop on something that's a little bit more accessible and less political, Jamie, I texted you a screenshot. Internews in Brazil, and if one of them has at the top of it something called "Rooted in Trust." If you keeps going up, yeah, there you go, that one. Yeah. Okay. So this is Internews, with a worldwide media octopus sponsored $500 million a year, reaching 9,000 journalists, 5,000 media outlets. And here's what they were doing, just on COVID censorship. So, Rooted in Trust is a Internews program. It's a global pandemic information response program to counter the unprecedented scale and speed and spread of rumors and misinformation.
All of which turned out to be true.
All of which turned out to be true. Our own CIA says that. Our own, House, Oversight Committee says that now.
Every single step of the way. There's not one thing they said they turned out